Today's lecture is the first of two lectures on what I like to call research plumbing. In other words, all the things you never worry about until they break. Plumbing isn't exciting, and you don't think about it most days, but boy do you notice if it's not working correctly. And the same is true with lots of boring but important tasks in empirical research. Things like loading, merging, reshaping and cleaning data, creating tables, and writing up results. The goal of this lecture, and the one that's going to follow on from it later in the term, is to show you some ways of working smarter rather than harder, so you can be faster, less error-prone, and more reproducible. Computers have been around for a long time, but famously they haven't shown up in the productivity statistics. My view is that there are massive unexploited productivity gains at the individual level, and I would like to help you reap them. So this lecture is going to be divided into a number of parts. Most of the parts are going to end with some exercises for you to try. One of the parts will have an exercise midway. The first part is going to tell you a bit about R Markdown and Quarto. How did I write these slides? Do you think that I copied and pasted lots of R code and results into Microsoft PowerPoint or perhaps into Beamer? Nope. I wrote them using something called Quarto. So I write the slides in a mix of R Markdown, R, and LaTeX, and behind the scenes, lots of fantastic packages, all freely available and contributed by very generous folks from all around the world, do the heavy lifting. Pandoc and Knitter dynamically convert everything that I've written into reveal.js HTML slides that I can post online. And you know what? If I wanted Beamer slides, I could easily have obtained these. Or I could have easily obtained a LaTeX document using exactly the same format by writing some simple markdown. If I were less virtuous than I am, I could even have generated a Microsoft Word document. And all of this takes basically no effort by using the wonderful tools Quarto and R Markdown. In this code block, you can see what a slide looks like behind the scenes. So this is an example of what I write to generate a slide, and I'm going to walk you through it. At the very top, you can see a little block inside of 3 hyphens that defines the title of the document. A little bit below that, you can see 2 hash signs. This is defining a heading. Then you can see some hyphens that are being used to create a bulleted list. I tell you that Markdown is fun because it is. You can write in italics. If you want to do that, you just enclose a word inside of asterisks. If you want boldface, you enclose it inside of 2 asterisks. It's very easy to create links as well. So the link text is enclosed in square braces, and they use parentheses for the link URL. You have full LaTeX math support. As you can see here, I've set up an integral from -infinity to infinity of f of x dx. And most importantly, you can include chunks of R code that will then be run in R, and the results will be returned to your document. So let me show you what the code that you can now see actually generates. This is the output. It's incredibly easy to use Quarto and R Markdown, and you're going to have to start doing it for your assignments in this course, not because I want to make your life hard, but because I want to make your life easy. So I've been saying Quarto or R Markdown. This is a distinction that I'm sorry that I have to make. It turns out that there are 2 very similar ways to get almost exactly the same output. Quarto is a slightly newer version. It's a bit more powerful, and it's got better support for languages other than R, including Julia and Python. On the other hand, R Markdown is a bit older. It's better documented. It's maybe a tiny bit less buggy. But from the perspective of what we need for this course, they are really 99.9% the same. Configuration details are a tiny bit different. But you can use whichever one you prefer. Of course, the reason I love Quarto is because it supports emoji, and as you've noticed, I am inordinately fond of those. So now you've got an exercise. I would like you to create a new R Markdown or Quarto document. It's your choice which one you want to use, and I'm suggesting that you create HTML output. I'd like you to use this document to take notes and complete exercises in future lectures. Now I want to emphasize that as part of this course, you're going to have to learn how to use R Markdown or Quarto, by reading the documentation that I have linked above, and that includes learning how to typeset mathematical equations using LaTeX. We will help you, however, and that help is going to start right now, because I'm going to show you very quickly in Posit Cloud how to get started with a simple Quarto document. So let me go to Posit Cloud. What I'm now going to do is I am going to go up here to File. Let me zoom in a bit more, and I'm going to choose New File, Quarto Document. Here it comes. OK. So now I can choose what sort of output I want. I'm going to choose HTML. That's a good way to get started. There are lots of other options. So let me first choose a title. This is Example Quarto Document. And I'll put in my name here, Frank. And now let's choose Create. All right. So you'll see a few things are going on right now. First of all, I have Untitled 1. You can see a little alert that says Package R Markdown required, but is not installed. Well, it's easy to fix that. Let's click on Install. This will take a moment. You can install this on your local R install, or you can use it in Posit Cloud. If you do use it in Posit Cloud, then you'll have to install it once for every new project that you create, but it will persist if you store that project and reuse it. It'll just take a moment. There's lots of ingredients here to R Markdown, but now we seem to be ready. OK, so I'm going to save this file. I'll call it, what shall I call it? Quarto example. You can see the file extension is .qmd. That stands for Quarto. And now I'm going to click a tab up here. You can see that there's a tab that says Visual, and there's a tab that says Source. Visual is one way to interact with Quarto. It is not the way that I recommend that you interact with it. So let's click on Source. And now you're going to see what I see when I'm writing these lectures. So this is an example document. It's already been partially filled out with some information. And you can use this information as a template. So we've got some very, very, very simple R code. We've got a title. We've got some other bits of information here, including a link. And you see it even gives you some instructions for how to render the document. So you can click on the Render button up here, or you can click on Control-Shift-K. And let's see what happens when we do that. All right, we get lots of output over here, and then bam, we have been redirected to our browser, and we have a beautiful HTML document with all of our code and output. So this is a template for you to get started using, and you can just fill in information of your own now. For example, I'll just do one really quickly. Let's do x gets rnorm 100, and I'll make a very simple histogram. Now, if I go back here and I save the document and I render it, we go back here, you can see I've got a very simple histogram. Apologies, it's not a ggplot histogram, but I think it still gets the job done. All right, so now it's your turn. I suggest that you fire up your copy of RStudio or go to Posit Cloud and then work on this exercise before you watch the next segment of this lecture recording.